We have discovered how and why Shangri-La is on Mars. It is way more complicated than meets the eye, and in fact, both the developers and in-game evidence has been reaffirming the actual story. We have only just now figured it out, literally about 13 years later. This is absolutely crazy. I've been loving these deep dive videos we've been doing lately and tying up all of the loose ends of the Ether story. So let's dive in. The best kept secret in zombies. These are the words from the tweet that shook zombies lore to its core and spawned a discussion still going to this day. With this video, however, I want to take a look back one final time and settle this discussion once and for all. Today, with the help from some of the team at COD Lore Facts, we are going to take a critical and unbiased look back at the evidence for zombies' most infamous theory. That doesn't involve Takeo the Spider, that is. Shangri-La is on Mars, and this video will confirm exactly how and why. It's all been laying there in plain sight, dormant for someone to finally put all of the puzzle pieces together, and I'm here to confirm to you that is what we're doing today. Zombies over the years has seen its fair share of wacky, outlandish theories that sometimes seem laughably ridiculous or impossible, like John D. One, however, has stood the test of time, starting relatively close to the beginning of zombies and managing to stay relevant all the way to Tag the Toten. The theory that Shangri-La, the third DLC for Black Ops 1 Zombies, actually takes place on Mars and not the Himalayas. If you ask anyone into zombies lore at all this question, they will almost certainly already have an answer they are committed to. They are either a firm believer that this is undeniably the case, or they think that this theory is laughably stupid and you must be insane for thinking so. The only way to find the truth is to reevaluate everything now. It all began with a Twitter post by Jimmy Zielinski. It's often forgotten when discussing this topic, but the date of that tweet was exactly 1 year after the date of Shangri-La. Jimmy, the head of zombies at the time, preceding Jason Blundell, tweeted Shangri-La mountains. This was followed up by Trek developers responding, the best kept secret in zombies, inspiring zombies lore fanatics at the time to quickly dive to find out exactly what this secret was. It didn't take long for people to data mine the texture of the mountains, which was the spark that began this discussion. The texture quite clearly says Mars in it, implying the Vista mountain texture was meant to be Mars and not Earth. Quickly, intense debate began to arise around the feasibility of a zombies map being set on Mars. Most of the initial debate here happened on the Call of Duty Zombies forums, which most of the posts on have now been lost to time. But we can find some evidence on the Wayback Machine. While some of the deep lore fanatics seem convinced that this was the intention, a handful of big creators ended up speaking on the issue. Each of them mostly wrote it off as a joke, impossible or not real at all, and just a troll from Jimmy Zielinski. The initial take, dropped reflexively all those years ago, still seems to have set the standard for how the community feels about it. Some of the major arguments against it are pretty common sense, surface level arguments. How could they have gotten to Mars? Why does the JGB's coordinates point to the Himalayas? And even if they magically got to Mars somehow, how in the world is there oxygen and air? All of these are legitimate criticisms worth keeping in mind, and we will come back to most of them as we look through the supporting evidence for this theory. So let's ignore the datamine texture and Jimmy's tweet for now, and see it as nothing more than a spark for this investigation. Firstly, let's take a look at the Shangri-La loading screen. In it, we see the temples being sucked into a tornado during the eclipse. The temples are surrounded by the same large red mountain range, hiding the appearance of anything else around it. Some fans suggest that this tornado sucking up the temples may actually be the entire place, teleporting between Shangri-La's Earth location, the Himalayas, and its other location, Mars, during said eclipse. We don't have any definitive proof of that right now, but it's worth keeping note of that for later. If the entire location can teleport, perhaps that's how the characters managed to get to Mars. It simply teleports, temple and all, taking our characters with it. Well, when and how would this teleportation happen? In the Easter egg of Shangri-La, the biggest step we see, time and again, is all 4 players pressing the buttons in the center temple, causing the map to time travel back before Brock and Gary were there, during a nighttime eclipse. Going to the past like this allows us to make changes to the temple that, in the future, will help save the lives of Brock and Gary from traps. This eclipse may be going a bit further back than just right before Brock and Gary, though. How far back? Let's take a closer look. I'm sure many of you, by now, have heard of Phobos potentially being in the sky in Shangri-La. Phobos is one of the 2 moons of Mars, and is oddly jagged shaped, not round and spherical like Earth's moon. And this unique jagged appearance can be found inside Shangri-La. While it did not end up in the original, shipped Black Ops 1 version, and we can instead see a reuse of the eclipse from DROPA, we can see it even earlier than that, in the reveal trailer for Shangri-La. It was also re-added back in the Zombies Chronicles version of Shangri-La in Black Ops 3. You can clearly see in the trailer here that the moon is jagged and rough, matching the appearance of Phobos 1-to-1. One of Mars's moons being in the sky is quite the bit of evidence that, at least during the eclipse, we just might be on Mars. But what if both were there? Just offset from the eclipse, if we look closely, even in Black Ops 1, we can actually see a second moon in the sky during the eclipse. While some players suggest it is a meteor or somehow related to the later step where you shrink a meteor into the focusing stone, it's actually almost certainly Deimos, the other moon from Mars. This is a detail I have rarely seen brought up when discussing the map. This pretty much sets in stone that the eclipse cannot be on Earth, and with both moons physically matching Mars's moons exactly, it's almost certain we are on Mars. This is pretty much common interpretation. However, with most further research, I think I've cracked the truth. As we discussed earlier, people have suggested that the Shangri-La loading screen could be us seeing the entire temple teleporting between Earth and Mars. But in the image, the tornado is clearly destroying it. It seems hard to imagine that the temple could continue to rebuild itself and us not notice this in the map somehow. What I think is happening is actually far simpler. We do not ever teleport the temple or see it teleport in the map. In fact, I would argue it has only really moved from Mars to Earth once. And all we are doing when activating the eclipse and going back in time is we are actually going far back enough that the temple was on Mars at that time. So we just end up going to Mars because we move with the temple in time. But where did I get all of this from? A big part of this is actually a small prop hidden in multiple maps, the DROPA stones. But what are the DROPA stones? As this video is a collaboration with COD Lore Facts, I now want to introduce you to Bob to give a brief rundown of exactly what these are, before I jump back further.
A major piece of evidence is the DROPA stones, which can be seen in Black Ops 1. These small disc-shaped stones were discovered in 1938 in the Himalayas Bayanhar Mountains by archaeologist Chi Pute. They're inscribed with symbols that tell of an alien race called the DROPA, who crashed their spaceship there 12,000 years ago, couldn't repair it, and lived among the locals. We see DROPA stones in 5, Shangri-La, and one appears on the moon map. Even more telling, the moon loading screen shows Shangri-La's temple on the lunar surface, as if it traveled there, carrying the DROPA stone with it before leaving it behind. But how can the temple fly? Keep this in mind for just a moment. The Vril Society, an occult group from the early 1900s who would heavily inspire the Keepers and be name-dropped in Black Ops 1 Zombies, adds another layer to this mystery. Led by medium Maria Orsic, they claimed to communicate with beings from Aldebaran, a giant orange star 65 light-years away in the Taurus constellation, much bigger and brighter than our sun. Often seen in occult lore as the home of an advanced alien race. The Vril believed these Aldebaran beings gave them instructions to build spacecraft. In Shangri-La's story, the Vril likely sought the DROPA's tech from that Himalayan crash site to harness its power. To understand this tech, and this crash site, we need to know about a Vimana, a concept from ancient Hindu mythology. Like in the Indian Mahabharata, where it's described as a flying craft or chariot used by the gods or advanced beings, often pyramid-shaped and capable of interstellar travel. The moon loading screen, showing the temple on the moon with the DROPA stone, suggests the Vril or DROPA might have tapped into this ancient tech, allowing the temple to move through space. We also saw another image suggesting this is what happened during Black Ops 3's viral marketing campaign. The DROPA stone on the moon map, paired with the moon loading screen of Shangri-La's temple on the lunar surface, is strong evidence of Vimana activity in the zombie storyline. The DROPA's ancient crash in the Himalayas is likely the source of inspiration for Shangri-La's Mars mystery.
Okay, so jumping back in, and thank you to Bob for reading that part of the video. I hope you enjoy these collaboration style videos, because if you do, I will definitely strive to do more in the future. Putting together these videos is a big collaborative process, and I want to incorporate that more with switching dialogue and commentary to really hone that point home. Anyways, back to the topic. Essentially, this temple we see in Shangri-La likely actually is a spaceship, a Vimana, and long ago these ancient aliens known as the Dropans / the Vril crashed the spaceship in the Himalayan mountains, embedded it into the mountainside. So when we activate the time traveling aspect of the temple during the quest, we are likely traveling back 10,000 or more years and ending up back when the temple was still on Mars. The Vril mythology also gives us a wild backstory about Mars, tying back to those Aldebaran aliens we learned about earlier. According to lore in Peter's moon, the Black Sun, the advanced Sumerians from Aldebaran didn't just stop at their star systems. They colonized the asteroid belt and then Mars long before coming to Earth, about 500 million years ago. They thrived on Mars until it became uninhabitable, forcing them to abandon the planet and move to Earth, which directly answers why Mars would somehow be livable in the atmosphere for the plants, animals, and characters in Shangri-La to survive and make a map on Mars entirely possible. This space station temple even explains one of the weirdest unanswered oddities in Shangri-La, the fact that when a monkey successfully takes your power up, he will run to the temple with it and blast off into the sky. If this temple is / was a space station, perhaps this is part of its functionality somehow. Looking back during research for this video, it actually becomes quite apparent this is the case when you see this Jimmy Zielinski tweet. He specifically makes sure to tell these fans that the Shangri-La monkeys are space monkeys, like the ones we then see on Ascension. This seems to be a direct confirmation that Shangri-La was in space on Mars. So, it seems, after re-evaluating all of the evidence, that the answer is actually quite definitive. Shangri-La is certainly on Mars, at least sometimes, during the eclipse, and it seems that the temple itself is a spaceship, as we see depicted multiple times in the loading screen images throughout Zombies' history. And it, at one point, flew from Mars, landed on the moon, then crashed here on Earth in the Himalayas. This temple can then simply travel in time back to the point it was on an alien, habitable Mars. This really sets Shangri-La apart as an incredibly interesting map lore-wise, and seems to make the heavy significance they gave it back in the day make way more sense. This also makes the secret Easter egg in Tag the Toten make far more sense, as when we fall and traverse through a tunnel, we come out to the other side, during which the Shangri-La music plays. and then you see Mars in the distance. We then quickly realize that Tagda Toten seems to be a pocket dimension inside of the Phobos moon itself, meaning we are looking directly into Shangri-La's history. And Pablo was stuck in a time loop like a liminal space as he was dead in the real world, and every time he would try and escape the island, he would find his way back. This is further supported by the Easter egg music video for the map, A Light from the Shore, where at the end it shows the lighthouse and the island transitioning into being a part of the moon Phobos. This is all clearly visually spelled out. Many people again have taken the secret Easter egg to just be a joke and a gag to this old theory, but it's not that. It's the final nail in the coffin, explicitly marking its significance as so. I strongly disagree with the few suggesting this was simply a tongue-in-cheek nod to the theory as a joke. I find it hard to believe Treyarch would use an Easter egg that major in the finale of the Ether storyline with such a definitive statement being made to poke fun at a theory that they run the risk of accidentally confirming. As it being the final map, they wanted to get one of the biggest loose threads out of the way before transitioning into a semi-reboot. And a nod with an Easter egg on the map itself and it being shown in the music video explicitly so makes this paramount. Essentially, when so much of the lore and Easter eggs and Tagda Toten existed to answer questions and give the community closure, as both Alpha Omega and Tagda Toten tied up so many loose threads and is largely why we can even do a full timeline video, this was Treyarch's one last shot at trying to tell us that Shangri-La is on Mars for real. This also means that every single game since it has happened has reaffirmed it in some way or another. It happens in Black Ops 1. Black Ops 2's marketing and release window featured the tweet about the mountains, sparking discussion on it before the new content from Black Ops 2 separated us further from it and meant we'd almost certainly never find it without help. Once we ignored that somehow, in Black Ops 3 we see multiple references. In the Chronicles version of Shangri-La, Phobos is restored and Deimos is preserved where it was before, removing the old Der Riese eclipse that had replaced Phobos in Black Ops 1. This was clearly just a placeholder moon they used, not meant to show Earth's moon there. So there's my answer. I am a firm believer that Shangri-La is on Mars and find it hard to deny. And it's a lot more complicated than initially thought. In fact, I would argue that, as insane as this is, when taking a look back, it's one of the most direct plot points that Treyarch have ever delivered, and they have continued to reaffirm, in spite of many community members not taking it seriously, time and time again. While some people would suggest that this was simply a crazy idea in Jimmy's head and no longer canon, if that is what the tweet hinted at, I would argue that's impossible. Jason Blundell and Craig Houston saw it important enough to reaffirm it, even though Jimmy Zielinski had left Treyarch by the time of Tagda Toten. And the inherent link between the Vril and the Keepers means they almost certainly also existed on Mars at a point in time, just like the Vril was said to have. But let me know your thoughts on it down below. Are you convinced, or is something still holding you back from believing? And if so, what is that? Also, a big thank you one more time to the team at COD Lawfacts for helping with this video. I'm going to be away shortly, and I'm recording this before I go beforehand, and they were a big help in getting this finished in time. So without further ado, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching. Remember, Shangri-La is on Mars. Bye.